Hello everyone. I just wanted to share with you a quick and easy way to wire up your e-learning modules to have selectable avatars. So I'm showing you how to do this in Articulate 360 today. If you happen to use Adobe Captivate or Lectora or another similar authoring tool, some of these principles will be the same, but your user interface might be a little bit different. Still, the theory behind the interaction should work regardless of which authoring tool you happen to be using. First, let's take a look at our slide here. I have 4 different avatars that I grabbed from Get Avatars. These are so fun and cute. What I've done is wired them up as buttons. So let me just go ahead and show you the preview of what we're doing here. I think that's the best way. And then I'll show you how I did it. And we'll do it together. Sounds fun, right? Okay. So we have our 4 avatars. You can do as many as you want. I thought for the sake of this demo, I'd just choose 4. So the learner will select an avatar. Let's pick this one. And when we go to the next slide, it will automatically queue up the avatar that the learner chose. So when I go back and I choose another avatar, again, we see the correct one. This way, you can make sure that your learners are seeing the avatar that they chose all the way through the learning module. It'll require a little bit of work on your part, and depending on how many avatars you choose to program, it could be a little bit time consuming, but this is a way to do it without needing any external JavaScript or code. It's just a simple variable and adding a few layers to slides in your Articulate storyline. So let me show you how I did it. Since we've already done these 2, let's go ahead and pick Janet here. So the first thing we need to do is create our triggers for Lauren. Or sorry, Janet. We're using Janet. It's really good to label, okay? Because I know I can't remember these things. So let's make sure that our Janet is going to go to the next slide first. So to do that, I could just copy and paste one of the other triggers from my other characters, but I'll make it from scratch. Click on her, click trigger. What we're going to do is go to the next slide. Jump the slide, next slide. On user click, Janet, okay, looks good, okay. But that's not all we need Janet to do. Now, the way you need to think about this interaction, there isn't a direct interaction for me to show something on the next page just from this click. What we actually need to do is create a variable. And I'll show you why in just a minute. First, let's go ahead and create our variable. So we're going to create a new trigger for Janet again. Action. We're going to choose adjust variable, but we don't have a variable yet, so we're going to make one by clicking these little 3 dots, and this lets me add a new variable. We're going to call this variable Janet, and the type we're going to choose is a true false, and our default value is going to be set to false. Now click OK. So it's set to false, and when the user, we're going to set it to the user to click on it, on Janet, it'll change it to true. So let me switch that to true real quick. So again, our default value is false. On assignment, the value is going to be changed to true when the user clicks on Janet. Makes sense, right? So why do we need that variable? To answer that, we'll need to go to our next slide. Now the way I've wired this up, we have our background layer in Storyline with our text, and then I have a different picture on each layer uh, that is hidden. So what we want to articulate to do is show us the layer that matches the picture in the previous slide, right? So let's find Janet's layer. There she is. And remember how we just created that variable? Well, now when we get to this slide, we're going to tell Articulate Storyline that we want to show Janet's layer if the variable Janet equals true, which we set to true in the last slide. So let me go ahead and wire that up now. So we're going to create a trigger. Oops, sorry, my bad. Let me take a step back here. Easy mistake to make. I actually want to be on my background layer. I don't want to be on any of these other layers when I'm creating this variable because it could attach the variable to the layer that I'm on. So let me go ahead and just create this trigger under slide triggers. Here you can see my other ones. I'm going to create a new trigger. Adjust variable, Janet. Alright, so let's make a new trigger. Oh. Let me get off that. Create a new trigger. The trigger is going to be show. We want to show the layer, right? So we're going to show layer, and the layer is going to be Janet. Okay, but that's not going to get us where we need to go quite yet. We need to tell it to show that layer when the variable equals true. So I'm going to click on Show Conditions. I'm going to do the plus sign to add a new condition. We're going to do variable Janet. Thought for our operator is equal to true. Okay, so Janet equals true. If you're familiar with programming or JavaScript, this all looks pretty familiar to you. It uses a lot of the same terminology and symbols and things like that. So I recommend learning a little bit about programming if you want to learn how to think like a computer like this. It's helped me a lot. It helped me think through these weird interactions. Any hoozles, let's click OK. All right, looks good. Now in theory, this should work. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. Oftentimes, we think things are going to go one way and they go another way. This is just me making excuses for myself in case I didn't wire this up correctly. All right, so here's Janet. Click Janet. Ah, didn't work. What happened? Let's see if we can figure it out. Let's look at this slide first. Let's look at Janet. If you look here under Janet's name, you'll notice I have the interaction to go to the next slide before I'm setting her variable to true. So what's happening is we're triggering this action before we can set our variable, and then it's not triggering on the next slide. So the fix is to switch these. Sorry. Again, I click this little up arrow. All right, now it should work the way we want it to, I hope. If you do it again. Here's Janet. Let's click on Janet. Huzzah! It's Janet. So you would repeat this process for all of your variables. You'll need to create your avatars on one slide, build your content slides with different layers for each picture of your avatar. You don't have to repeat your other slide content. You just need to have a layer for each image. And then you need to create a variable and wire it up so that the variable triggers the corresponding picture on each different slide. So all in all, this is the way I figured out to do this, and I hope it helps you. If you have any questions about how I did this, just let me know. I'd be happy to walk you through this. Or if you're using another authoring tool like Lectora or Captivate and you'd like to see how to do this, just let me know. I am by no means an expert with any of this, but I thought this would help people out, and it's something that I had to figure out on myself, so I hope you enjoyed it. So I forgot to show you guys something that is kind of cool and helpful. What's neat about building this interaction is that once you wire up your variable and you build it, it will apply to additional slides throughout your presentation as well, at least within this scene. Because basically any page with that variable and those layers will react the same way as long as you make the initial selection. So let me show you what I mean. Let's preview our scene here. So let's say I click on Lauren here. Yay, Lauren. Now, this is my first page with Lauren in text. Now, perhaps I want her to show up on additional slides through the presentation. The scene. Still getting used to storylines and terminology. I can simply reuse this slide with its layers and the triggers set up the way they are, and then just change my background content. So that's what I did here. So I go to the next scene, and here's a different slide, but we still have Lauren. And here's another slide, and we still have Lauren again. So I can continue doing this as much as I want, and I only had to build that interaction once. So let's close the preview and try someone else. Let's preview again. I don't know why I did that. I could have just gone back to the first slide, but anyway, let's do Janet here. Here's Janet. Janet, just like the Brady Bunch. Now there is a limitation here. If I go back to my avatar selection and say we go here, you'll notice, oh, what happened? I still have Janet. So what's happening is these layers, even though it's showing the additional layer, it's not hiding the one before that. So all that really means for you from a programming standpoint is that once your learner chooses their avatar, you want to just disable them from going back and choosing another one, and you won't have any issues. There are some workarounds if you really want that extra level of redundancy. You can set up variables so that it kind of resets it each time. It would be a bit laborious, but you can do it. And if people are interested in seeing how to do that, let me know, and I will do that, and I will show you. But for me, I'm just happy with this, and I would just disable the back button so that they can't get back to the avatar selection screen. I feel like once you choose your avatar for the sake of the lesson, it's not really much point in going back and swapping them out. Unless you really, really want to do that, and if you want them to do that, I'll show you. Just let me know. Anyway, okay, now goodbye for real.